What's up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur podcast, and today we have a very special guest for you. His name is Nikhil, and Nikhil is a visionary creator, mystic, innovator, strategist, master coach, designer, and author of GODFORCE, Liberate Your Mind, Master Your Reality, and Unleash Your Primal Genius. As the co-founder and CEO of Ecosystem Architect of ASRAYA, he leads a pioneering community that diffuses ancient wisdom with modern technology. This unique blend fosters growth, interdependence, and collaboration among visionaries and changemakers. His mission is to empower 1 million new paradigm leaders to realize their supreme potential by creatively and courageously unleashing their genius into the world. He has collaborated with hundreds of visionary entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives, launched multiple startups, and visited over 70 countries that transmuted many shadows and constructs on the eternal path of realizing his destiny. Welcome to the show, Nikhil.
Thank you, Christian. It's an honor to be here with you today.
So the first question I have for you today is, what do you mean by unleashing your primal genius? Why primal?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So, the word primal can connect it to like primordial. It's prime. It's the first substance, the first influence, the first inspiration. So when I speak to primal genius, I'm alluding to connecting to that aspect of ourself, that godly substance that was born way before we could even kind of conceive what it is to be human. So I'm talking about that part of us that's so deep that perhaps even transcends what we think our genius could be, because there's so much more that we don't know about ourselves, and we often move through the world with a limited identity. So if we connect to our primal genius and our primal essence, we're connecting to the elements, we're connecting to source, we're connecting to this deeper aspect of our being coming from the prime aspect of us. So that first influence of creation itself.
Okay, great. With that being said, I would love for you to shed some light on us of how you found your insights, or you seem to be a very mystical, also entrepreneurial figure. So how did you find those insights in spirituality or in your own primal experience of connecting to that force?
That's a really great question. So, I'll just kind of briefly share my spiritual journey just to kind of get context. And of course, we're all having a spiritual journey just by being here in form, because we're spirit in form, and form is also spirit. But I was born in India, and I guess there's an inherent spiritual energy to India that, in hindsight, I've realized. I do remember actually being in my mother's womb. I remember being born, and the first trauma I had during my birth, interestingly enough, when the doctors put a needle in me because they thought I'd swallowed my feces while I was being born. So that was kind of like my first imprint of being a human, I guess. But long story short, we moved to Australia when I was 5, and was adjusting to the culture there and lived my Australian experience as an Indian migrant. And when I was 18, I had a really deep and profound spiritual awakening, which was triggered by seeing the number 1111 everywhere, funnily enough, back in 2003. And at this point, there wasn't much online about stuff like this. It was just like one article. Now it's like, angel numbers and things. And anyway, like the message was, it was about DNA activation and a spiritual awakening. And I was like, okay. So I was just experiencing a lot of like kind of glitches in the reality, and I thought I was going crazy, and I was seeing this number all of the time, and I inherently felt called to start to pray more and start to connect more. And my first point of reference was through like the Bible, because I was raised a Catholic. I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's some answers in here. And so I went super deep, unpacked it, not through like a dogmatic lens, through like a wisdom seeking lens. And I used to, wake up at 3 a.m. and do these specific prayers and like all of this, right? And I was being visited by like some higher consciousness and some energy that was in my life. And the guidance I got given the guidance to kind of close the book and start to just go within. And I just deepened my meditation practice. And I was just like so deep into this exploration and celebration of spirit to the point that I was being visited by like light beings. I used to wake up in my room at nighttime and there were like these golden, like white, silver balls and orbs of light that would just pour energy on me. It was like ecstasy. And I used to just walk around with like and see orbs of light in my physical reality because I had raised my frequency so high and everything in my life fell away. Like I couldn't listen to hip hop anymore. Like I wasn't, smoking. Like I didn't want to be intimate with my partner. But like in a nutshell, I was so high on this pendulum and I didn't know about grounding. I didn't know about like I had no physical teachers. It was just this energy that was speaking and working through me. And some childhood trauma, like some deep-seated darkness, which I speak about this in my book as well, it came up about a year, just over a year into the experience, and everything kind of fell away in my life, and then the pendulum swung the other way essentially because like I couldn't reconcile the darkness, and there was an aspect of me that wanted to understand the nature of fear, and energetically because I'd gone so high, I guess I had to swing the other way. So spiraled for a few years into darkness, very unhealthy expression of masculinity, um, drugs, dealing, violence, like womanizing, pretty much trying to destroy myself unconsciously. And then what kind of shifted was getting a job in Emirates Airlines when I was 21. I didn't even know what it really was. I just got the job, and I spent 9 years traveling the world and getting paid to do so, which I guess further enhanced my worldview and my paradigm view of just people, meeting hundreds and thousands of people, traveling to all of these countries and leading and coming back from that experience when I was 30, leaving the airlines. There was no more growth in Dubai. I didn't want to be in corporate on ground. And I just completed my business degree via correspondence. And I didn't really learn much in the business degree other than, hey, maybe I can start a business. So I came back to Australia, started my first startup, which had some success, but then it also, quote unquote, failed. And a year into that, me and my ex-wife, we split ways, which was quite a challenging situation, as she had found somebody else, and a lot came up for me. But I was outwardly upset, but inwardly I knew spirit was calling me back because I disconnected that kind of access. And this is when I told myself, before I get into a relationship again, I'm going to look at some of this relationship stuff and do a bit of healing work. And I started doing some tantric work, which is some workshops and some practices, and then this kicked up deeper seated trauma and energy that I hadn't dealt with, and then that kicked up, and that started a journey of about like, I'm still on that journey in some ways. We're always healing in some capacity, but I started to just explore different modalities, things from my first psychedelic experience to just deep like explorations of my my inner world. But in parallel, this is when like that time I was with my wife just after Emirates. We were in the States just before we broke up actually. Like this is when I started I, I said, hey, how do I make money online without, out kind of selling my soul? And I decided I would start serving conscious entrepreneurs, and just to branding and design and strategy and things like that. And during those years, 7, 8 years, I was growing that business slowly but surely, but creating a lot of space for my own healing, because that was really the foundation that has allowed me to even birth something like ASRAYA and my book, right? So it was kind of like this, my 30s, I'm 38 now. It was like this parallel journey of developing and cultivating entrepreneurial skills, business skills, specifically serving impact entrepreneurs, conscious entrepreneurs, and being in this exploration. And the last piece I'll share, like I believe that the greatest catalyst for one's, I mean, not the greatest, but one of the greatest catalysts for one's spiritual growth and development is being on the entrepreneurial path. So even that in itself has been catalyzing my journey. So yeah, I've always been spiritual in some sense, and I've had a lot of mystical experiences, and there's so much more that I could we could speak to another time. But yeah, it's just been inherently here and present with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful, and what I love about the guests in this podcast is that both have this like equal balance of like spirituality and entrepreneurship,
Mm,
right? And I think it's just such an honor to be able to walk in both worlds, kind of have one leg in spirituality, the other one in entrepreneurship, like in the world that,
mm,
but yeah, entrepreneurship itself is also a spiritual journey. And so, you know, it's just really cool to see that people strike that balance. And talking about that balance, where is that balance for you? Like,
mm,
where do you see currently in your life? I would say yes, it's a little bit more, it's like 70-30, sixty
mm.
40, 50-50. Where do you feel yourself within those two um, areas?
So that's a really interesting question, right? And I'm going to give like kind of two answers because it goes in flux. So when I'm feeling like I'm in my power, when I'm regulated, when I'm really in flow, and like I feel really good about myself, they are both interconnected at all times. There's no separation between me being in a spiritual expression and me being an entrepreneurial expression, because like I'm moving through my life as a creator, right? Like, so what is spirituality? What is spirit? Spirit is a creative force. Spirit is creation. Entrepreneurship is creation. And and this, being a dynamic creation where we're listening, we're attuning, we're pivoting, all of that. So like that's more of like, I guess, an esoteric philosophical answer. And when I'm in flow and when I'm feeling really connected, it kind of blends into one. But in a practical sense, like, or more like I guess a human perspective, there's sometimes where I'm feeling like I'm way more in the entrepreneurial kind of grind, which is also like more of a 3D belief, because we fluctuate between these different levels. And if I'm in that state where I'm feeling like it's challenging and it's not as easeful as it can be, I recognize that I haven't really been tending to my spiritual practice as much as I would like to be, right? And so maybe spirituality takes a back burner, right? But then the signal of when I'm in that state is that things are feeling stressful. I'm feeling like things aren't flowing as easily. Recognizing entrepreneurship is inherently challenging. There's a challenge associated with it, but that challenge can still feel joyful. So it's kind of like this dance. But fundamentally, I believe that there's no difference between entrepreneurship and spirituality, but the invitation is how we place the boundaries in our life so that we can tend to our spirituality, so we can tend to our body, our being, so that our cup is full, so that then we can actually be of service in the world in a more healthy way. But innately it's paradoxical because they're not different, but at the same time they're also different things,
Hmm.
i how we flow in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, this is like saying um, in a book called A Course in Miracles, like to be in the world but not of it, you know?
Yes.
And that's kind of like the feeling that I associate with that. And I think it's really cool that you say you're both at the same time, because ultimately we're just inseparable from our stream of consciousness, right? And we're everything at the same time. It's just like, what do we focus on right now? Oh, is Christian spiritual right now on the Spiritual Entrepreneurs podcast? I mean, I'm like this all the time,
Hmm.
right? But obviously, now that we're talking about spiritual topics, that side even gets out a little bit more, right?
Hmm.
So, but yeah, same here. It's like I feel this. It's so cool to be able to do both at the same time, because that ultimately that means that you've integrated both to a
Exactly.
degree where you feel it's just your being, like it's your essence,
Yes.
you know. So yeah, that's really beautiful. And
Hmm.
one thing I wanted to ask, like, what's one of your favorite like activities to do as like an entrepreneur, that field that brings you in flow or maybe has some sort of
Hmm.
connection to spirituality? I can tell you what mine is, maybe after or before you choose. But
Yeah,
maybe I'll
go,
say
go
it
for
now.
it.
Like,
Share
yeah,
yours. Share
so I
yours with
think
me.
mine is designing.
Hmm.
Like I'm a designer, right?
Hmm.
And my favorite part about designing with and for people is distilling that essence of who they are on a visual canvas, whether it's a website or a branding package and whatnot. But that process of channeling and yeah, channeling something visually for someone is really cool.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, well, I mean, in my tool belt, I definitely have cultivated design skills, and I love design as well, for sure. Specifically, like when you're in the essence and the nuance of someone's genius and brilliance, and you see it get translated. So definitely design. But I think where I find my deepest flow and inspiration is when I would say it's like weaving, right? It's like, which is it's channeling, but it's weaving and integrating, and like, because I'm like a systems thinker, and I can see like the different interconnected things between, you know, somebody's business or like a new innovation and the market and psychology, and just connecting things together. Like, so like the innovation process for me is really, really quite powerful. And especially when I'm in a room with others as well, and I can tap into the energy of, you know, kind of different beings and align people together around an idea, get consensus. So like the leading kind of design thinking workshops, you know, for example, and just like being in the process of ideation is really, like, really enjoyable. Like, I have like, you tell me, like, you tell me something about your business, or you just tell me something instantaneously, I will see, like, you know, boom, 10, 20 different kind of nodes that I can kind of connect together. It's like this inherent gift that I have to see. I can see multidimensionally, actually. Like, I'll kind of voice it. I can physically see different dimensions, and I can see, like, I can see into DNA strands, and it's like I'm still learning to integrate that gift, to be honest with you. But yeah, when I'm in a kind of like that kind of state where it feels like multidimensional, and then being able to translate that into tangible action, right? Whether that's you know, whether that's like a statement, whether that's an idea, whether that's a graphic, whether that's a map of something, or a connection. For me, that's where I'm like, being a bridge between worlds.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, our mission here at Love Pixel, you know, which is the agency that I lead and founded, is to make love tangible.
I love that.
And I think it's such a wonderful mission because we all do it, you know, in different ways. And here, you know, at Love Pixel, we just do it with design and web design and branding and all that kind of stuff. And it's just really cool when you can make such a intangible concept like love or spirituality tangible for somebody, right? Like I get a kick out of it when I know that somebody visits a page that we've built and they're like, damn, this page is amazing. You know, it's like something about this. You know,
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
ever says it, but you've made something inexplicable tangible for somebody who is maybe on a completely different frequency, right?
yes,
So that is really, really cool because it shows that person that there's more. You know, it's kind of like for us, the crop circles. It's like we haven't figured it out. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But there's more.
yes.
Like there's mystery to life. You know, there's something, you know, secret sauce.
Yeah, no, I love that. And look, you've nailed it, right? Because you and, you know, your agency, you're connecting from an intention of love, of service, right? Like, it's coming from like really pure place. So that's going to be infused into anything that you create. And it's the same with like any other, you know, create, you know, a creative, you know, like a business, an organization, or a creator. When they're connected from love, it's evident. You can feel it because it's infused into the creation itself, and it's not always kind of like comprehended intellectually or rationally, but it's a visceral feeling, right? And that's like, and we feel that, you know, in somebody's content, or like a piece of art, like, wow, it's making me feel something. That's indication that that has been created with life in like following the original blueprint of creation. There's like this love infused into it. And like, honestly, like, I believe that spirituality is somewhat pointless unless it's integrated into the human experience. Because if we see the human experience as separate from spirituality, we're living in an illusion. We're deluded. Because the physical experience is spirit in matter. It is matter is spirit. There's no separation from it. So when like building a phenomenal deep website, like, and someone is feeling love, feeling presence, it's like, well, yeah, you've created something divine. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to get that reflected back, And it's true. Like a lot of our creation, or let's say like my life is like, what am I even doing in my life with my life, right? But I think because you just don't hear the feedback often, like from the thousands of people that you actually impact and that use
Exactly.
the technology that you create. So, yeah, it's cool. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome. And no, I get it. Like being a creator, creative myself, an entrepreneur, is at times, and I'm sure there's many people that are listening to this that are also building something, right, or whatever it might be, and or something that's probably conscious if they listen to this podcast, and it can feel isolating at times, right? Like being on your journey, and even though you have got a community, you're building something, and you're not always getting the feedback from the field. But this is an invitation perhaps to go out and ask your clients, ask your customers, hey, what do you feel when you connect to my website or my content or whatever it might be? And then when you get that feedback, like write it down somewhere and like put it on like a whiteboard or a vision board, so that there's like and get their faces, so that there's a feedback loop, so you can connect to the impact that you're making. Because yeah, the mind is fleeting, right? We can focus on what is the next goal, the next outcome, but sometimes we disconnect from the ripples of change that we're already making in the world through whatever your medium of creativity is.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let's talk about the goals and the outcomes a little bit. What do you think is like for somebody who is out there and he knows or she knows that they know what they want to do, but they for some reason can't really translate it into something tangible. What would you say is a good way to get started?
Hmm. Yes, that's a really great question. So this they've got a sense of like, okay, this is what I enjoy doing. These are my gifts. These are my interests. I think like an immediate, very practical step to start to kind of like triangulate and focus your energy is just do like an ikigai exercise, right? And I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's a process where you can start to identify the convergence of your purpose, your interest, what you can get paid for, so you can just start to get a sense of where energy might be flowing. And once you've got like a few ideas, because I would definitely recommend like not just setting yourself like your goals on one specific thing, just brainstorm or heartstorm. Of course, if there's something very specific that you feel like this is what I want to explore, okay, follow that thread. But I would look at it through like an experimental process, because you're never going to get it right off the first bat, and creation is always an iterative process. So give yourself like, okay, I'm going to experiment for 90 days exploring this idea, and I'm going to set a daily practice that's going to support me towards the building of this idea. So let's just say that you want to start creating content so that you can you can start serving an audience for a product, right? Because okay, so you've got a product in mind. Maybe it's like a physical object that you want to create, right? Like maybe it's a pair of glasses that can give you X-ray vision, or for whatever it might be. But first, you want to be able to validate that through a process of creation. So for the next month or the next few months, write about your idea, write about the why behind your idea, talk to people about your idea, essentially get into the energy of that idea. And you don't have to even create the thing just yet. Just start speaking about it, start getting information from, is this a problem, the problem that you're solving with your X-ray glasses? Is this something that people are actually having the same problem? So essentially, it's like being in a process of experimentation where you are sharing about your why, sharing about the challenge that you're wanting to solve, and having conversations. And then you will find out pretty quickly whether you feel good about talking about this thing, whether you feel good about creating content around this specific area. And you'll hear from your people around, is there actually energy here? Is this actually, is this something that's worth, productizing? Because if you're talking about a business or an enterprise, you need customers, you need clients. And if no one is buying your thing, then, well, it's going to be more challenging than you might think. So I guess to kind of, summarize that in a nutshell, like, don't take it too seriously. Be in an open experiment in the process. And there's a quote that, like, I think works well here, by Miyamoto Musashi, who was the most famous samurai and also like a philosopher sage. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world, right? So when we have an idea, we can often get very serious about it, that it becomes almost heavy and kind of like, it's like, got to put this thing into the world. It's like, no, think it's like, hey, how can I think of this lightly? This is like something that is easeful and joyful, but thinking deeply of the world. Think deeply about like how people could benefit if whatever you're offering can solve something for them, can help them to heal, to grow, to expand. So you're being of service in that way, and you're not coming with the attitude that I've got the perfect answer. It's like, no, like I've got a general ballpark idea, but I'm going to just have these light conversations, but go deep with others, which will then inform my creative process. That's how I would approach it.
Beautiful. And let's say somebody would have that validation or the testing phase behind
Mm.
them and say, yeah, that's the thing
Yeah.
I want to do. What would you
Yeah.
suggest
Mm.
next?
Yeah. So easy. Build as quickly as you can towards an MVP, which is minimum viable product, or you can look at it as a prototype, right? So you have an idea and it's validated. Yes, there's interest here. Like even that validation process in itself is almost like an MVP because you validated an idea. Like how do you package the idea? Now, how do you build something in the shortest period of time so that you can essentially get someone's email or get someone to pay for it, right? And honestly, the quickest way to do that is to build out a landing page, right? And to find, and you can do that, like you can just do a Google Doc, for example. But if you've got the resource to build a nicely designed landing page, where in which someone can come on there and they can self-identify with what's being offered, and the offering is clear and it's a yes, so they put in the email or they put in their credit card, ideally. Well, great. Like you've got traction with the product in some way, and you can almost even build the product retroactively after getting people to swipe their credit card. Because if someone has said yes to, okay, X-ray glasses, and I'm using a really silly example here, right? But like X-ray glasses, these will give you these will give you vision into your future. But it's not just X-ray glasses; it's actually a process to help you to clarify your vision and take action towards that. And then based on how people have, if people are saying yes to it, then you can build a product retroactively, and then you can use the money to build the glasses. So it's really just like moving as quickly as you can, serving a small amount of people who are willing to pay for it. Then you can do more testing. And I guess this is something important to share, because your product is never going to be perfect off the bat. Even if you're creating like a coaching offering, or or a website, or a new car, or whatever it might be, it's going to take a few cycles of refining the product, hearing back from your clients and your customers, to then dial it in to a point that you're like, it's going to convert every time, and it's going to deliver on the promise every time. And then you can start thinking about scaling, and that process can take years.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful, process for anyone to follow that, is out there with an idea they want to start pursuing, testing, validating the idea, and then just throwing up a landing page and see what people's interest is. Get their email, maybe even get their credit card, or have them pay for some sort of deposit. I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah, no, and the beautiful thing is, it's just, it can be done. It can be done at little to no cost, right? And that's, I think it's a really important thing just to reiterate that, I think so many entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs spend a lot of time and resources, specifically
Yeah,
financial capital, on like building all of the thing, like building, building the
yeah,
technology stack and buying funnels. And it's like, well, if you haven't validated it, like you're just throwing like a dart into the darkness. So yeah, it's a really kind of simple process that it's worth doing upfront, and then you can start to really invest in the in the infrastructure you need to grow and expand.
yeah. Yeah, I always people usually they come to us with love picks. They fall in three categories. They launch with love, grow with love, and scale with love. Right?
Mm.
In the launch phase, we usually just tell them, listen, just build your website yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you obviously have the financial resources to hire us to do it. Um, but build a website yourself, right? It's very easy to build a website on Squarespace or Wix or
Mm.
any platform out there, and it's really not that complicated, right? But just
Mm.
get something out there. Don't waste your
Exactly.
time thinking about the perfect thing and just get it out there, share it with people, and then you can still update and revamp and do whatever you need to do.
Yes.
So yeah, so we're coming up to the end of the podcast, and I always love to give this part over to the guest and do a little bit of visioning with you. Like, so if you have anything that you would like to call in the future or in your life right now, then I would love to invite you to do so. So anything you would love to put out in the ether for you to come to you.
Yeah, no, beautiful, and thank you for the time today. So, for me, what's really in my on my heart right now is this calling to kind of bring together and unite visionary creators, across kind of different realms into a unified space where we're able to, collaborate, share ideas, activate each other, and be in a unified creative process within an ecosystem, recognizing that like we all have our unique brilliance and our gifts that are so important and special and needed in the world right now, and we get to do it together, and within ASRAYA, you can visit the website asraya.io. This is really at the heart of that mission, and it's a shared mission I think that many other creators share, but we're actually doing it right. We are creating a space to bring people create together, not just to connect spiritually but also to really come together and activate and grow and expand.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Um, I'll set the intention to sit at a campfire with you one day. I think that'd be amazing. So thanks for taking the time being on, and yeah, love and thank you, Nikhil.